The rescue operation proceeded with remarkable efficiency. Kresh watched from the bridge of the New Horizon as his massive warship moved into position alongside the damaged Zalani vessel. The human crew worked seamlessly with Vorthak engineering. Teams, coordinating their efforts through universal translation systems and hand signals when language barriers arose. Amy supervised the medical treatment of injured Zalani survivors in the New Horizons medical bay. Despite the fact that these same beings belonged to the species that had attacked human colonies, she worked tirelessly to save their lives. Kresh observed her treating a badly wounded Zalani soldier with the same care she would give to an injured human. "The medical supplies from your ship made the difference," Amy reported to Jake over the communication system. "Without the advanced healing compounds your people provided, we would have lost at least 6 of the survivors." Ben coordinated with Vorthak engineers to repair the Zalani ship's life support systems. The cooperation between human and Vorthak technical teams surprised everyone involved. Despite their very different approaches to technology, both species found ways to combine their knowledge effectively. Their repair techniques are quite ingenious, one of Kresh's senior engineers reported. "The humans use improvised solutions that would never occur to us, but they work remarkably well." Lisa worked with Vorthak navigators to plot a safe course for the repaired Zalani ship to reach the nearest inhabited system. The Zalani captain, once his injuries were treated, expressed confusion about why his former enemies were helping him. "We attacked your colonies," the Zalani captain said to Jake through the translation system. "Why do you save us now?" Jake's answer was simple and direct. "Because you needed help, and we could provide it." Kresh found himself deeply affected by watching the rescue operation unfold. Every decision the humans made seemed to contradict basic survival instincts, yet their actions achieved results that pure aggression never could. The Zalani crew, who had expected to die in space, were not only alive but genuinely grateful to their rescuers. More importantly, Kresh noticed changes in his own warriors. The Vorthak soldiers who had worked alongside humans during the rescue operation seemed different afterward. They spoke more quietly among themselves, and several asked questions about human culture and values. Commander Vex, Kresh's second-in-command, approached him privately after the rescue was complete. "Warlord, the crew is beginning to question our traditional methods. Some of the warriors are saying that perhaps there are alternatives to conquest and domination." Kresh had been expecting this conversation. The exposure to human values was affecting his entire command structure. "What alternatives do they suggest?" "They speak of cooperation, of building alliances based on mutual benefit rather than fear," Vex replied, his tone indicating disapproval of these ideas. "This human influence is weakening our military effectiveness." Before Kresh could respond, urgent alerts began sounding throughout both ships. Long-range sensors had detected a massive Vorthak battle fleet approaching their position. The fleet was led by Admiral Thane, one of the most aggressive commanders in the Vorthak Empire. Jake joined Kresh on the bridge as they received an incoming transmission from the approaching fleet. Admiral Thane's scarred face appeared on the main screen, his yellow eyes burning with anger. "Warlord Kresh, you will explain why you are cooperating with inferior species instead of conquering them. These humans should be enslaved or destroyed, not treated as equals." Kresh felt the weight of decision pressing down on him. His entire career, his status within Vorthak society, and his relationship with the Imperial command structure all depended on how he responded to this challenge. "Admiral Thane, I am conducting extended negotiations with this human vessel. Their technology and cultural information may prove valuable to the Empire. Thane's expression showed clear disbelief. Negotiations? You have enough firepower to destroy their ship in seconds. Take what you want and eliminate the witnesses. Jake stepped forward, positioning himself next to Kresh. Admiral, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the exploration vessel New Horizon. We've been having very productive discussions with Warlord Kresh about potential cooperation between our species. The suggestion of cooperation between humans and Vorthak clearly enraged Admiral Thane. Cooperation. The Vorthak Empire does not cooperate with inferior beings. We conquer and rule. Amy, Ben, and Lisa took positions at their stations, ready to face whatever came next. But Kresh noticed something important about their behavior. They were prepared to defend themselves, but they weren't showing the panic or desperation that most species displayed when facing overwhelming Vorthak military force. Warlord Kresh, Admiral Thane continued, you will immediately destroy the human vessel and return to the fleet. Your recent actions suggest that you have been compromised by exposure to alien influences. Commander Vex moved closer to Kresh, his hand resting on his weapon. Perhaps Admiral Thane is correct. These humans have clearly affected your judgment. Kresh found himself at a crossroads that would define not only his own future, but possibly the future of both species. Everything in his background and training told him to follow Admiral Thane's orders, destroy the human ship, and return to the familiar certainties of Vorthak military doctrine. But the past few hours had shown him possibilities he had never imagined. He had watched humans risk their lives for former enemies. He had seen cooperation achieve results that conquest could not. He had experienced forms of strength that had nothing to do with physical domination. Admiral Thane, Kresh said slowly, I have learned things from these humans that could benefit the entire Vorthak Empire. Their methods of problem-solving and conflict resolution could make us stronger. Thane's response was immediate and threatening. You speak like a conquered being rather than a Vorthak warrior. If you will not destroy these humans, then you are no longer fit to command. Jake stepped forward again. Admiral, Warlord Kresh has shown tremendous courage in being willing to learn from others. That kind of leadership could transform your entire civilization. Silence! Thane roared. No human gives advice to Vorthak commanders. Commander Vex drew his weapon and pointed it at Jake. Warlord, give the order to execute these aliens and prove your loyalty to the Empire. In that moment, Kresh realized that everything had changed for him. He could no longer pretend that might made right or that conquest was the only path to strength. The humans had shown him a different way of being powerful, one based on wisdom rather than fear. Commander. Vex, lower your weapon, Kresh ordered. I will not take orders from a compromised leader, Vex replied, keeping his weapon trained on Jake. Kresh could have easily defeated Vex in combat. His superior strength and experience would have made the fight brief and decisive. But instead of attacking his subordinate, Kresh did something unprecedented in Vorthak history. He turned to Jake Morrison and said words that no Vorthak warrior had ever spoken. Captain Morrison, I need your help. The admission stunned everyone on both bridges. Admiral Thane stared in disbelief, while Commander Vex hesitated with his weapon still drawn. Jake looked at Kresh with understanding and respect. What do you need from me? Jake asked quietly. Help. Me find a better way to lead my people, Kresh replied. Show me how to be strong without causing suffering. Jake smiled and extended his hand once again. This time, Warlord Kresh took it without hesitation. I'd be honored to help, Jake said simply. Admiral Thane's face contorted with rage. This is treason. All ships, target both vessels and prepare to fire. But something unexpected happened. Several ships in the Vorthak fleet did not respond to the order. Their captains had been monitoring the communications and had witnessed Kresh's transformation. Some of them were beginning to question their own assumptions about strength and leadership. Kresh looked at the main screen, where Admiral Thane waited for compliance with his orders. When Kresh spoke, his voice carried a new kind of authority. 2. All ships in the fleet, this is Warlord Kresh. I am not betraying the Vorthak Empire. I am trying to help it grow into something better than it has ever been before. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time in his life, Kresh felt hope rather than just determination. He had found teachers who could show him new ways to be strong, and perhaps his people could learn from them too. The conversation in the mess hall was interrupted by urgent beeping from the bridge communications system. Lisa quickly moved to the nearest wall panel and activated the intercom. This is the New Horizon. We're receiving a distress signal. Jake immediately stood up, his relaxed demeanor shifting to focused alertness. What's the source of the signal? Amy was already pulling up data on her portable scanner. It's coming from approximately 50,000 kilometers away. The transmission is weak and intermittent, but it appears to be from a damaged vessel with multiple life forms aboard. Kresh watched with interest as the human crew immediately shifted into emergency response mode. Without any discussion or orders from their captain, each person began performing specific tasks. Ben headed toward the bridge to check on ship systems, Lisa started calculating intercept courses, and Amy began preparing medical supplies. The signal includes basic universal distress codes, Amy reported. Whoever they are, they're in serious trouble. Jake looked at Kresh directly. Warlord, I need to ask for your permission to respond to this distress call. Your ship is significantly more capable than ours for rescue operations. The request caught Kresh completely off guard. The human was asking permission rather than simply proceeding with his plans. More puzzling still, Jake was suggesting that the Vorthak ship should help with the rescue. You wish to risk both our vessels to aid unknown beings? If people are dying, then yes, Jake replied without hesitation. We can't ignore a distress call just because we don't know who sent it. Kresh followed the humans back to the bridge, his warriors staying close behind. The main screen now displayed the location of the distress signal and preliminary scans of the area. As they gathered more data, the situation became clearer and more complicated. I'm getting better readings now, Amy announced. The damaged ship appears to be from the Zalani Republic. The vessel is losing atmosphere and power with approximately 30 life forms aboard. The name Zalani Republic caused Kresh's warriors to growl and shift their weapons. Ben noticed the reaction and looked confused. Is there a problem with that identification? Kresh's expression hardened. The Zalani attacked several human colonies 6 months ago. They killed thousands of your people and destroyed 3 settlements before your military forces drove them away. Jake's face grew serious as he processed this information. The Zalani had indeed been responsible for devastating attacks on human civilian populations. The images of destroyed homes and killed families had shocked humanity and led to increased military preparedness along the frontier. So these could be the same Zalani who attacked our people? Lisa asked quietly. Amy checked her readings again. The ship configuration matches Zalani military vessels, but I can't determine if this specific ship was involved in the attacks on our colonies. Ben pulled up tactical data on his console. Even if they weren't directly involved, they're members of the same military force that killed our civilians. Kresh observed the human crew carefully, expecting them to either ignore the distress call or perhaps even attack the damaged Zalani ship in revenge. The Vorthak certainly would have seen this as an opportunity to eliminate enemies who were too weak to defend themselves. But Jake's response surprised everyone in the room. Prep the medical bay for incoming casualties. Lisa, plot a course to intercept the Zalani ship. Ben, prepare our emergency repair equipment. One of Kresh's warriors spoke up in the Vorthak language, clearly questioning their leader about why he was allowing the humans to help their enemies. Kresh gestured for silence, but he was just as confused as his subordinate. Captain Morrison, Kresh said slowly, these beings have killed members of your species. Why would you risk your lives to save them? Jake continued working at his console while he answered. Because they're people in trouble right now. Whatever they did before, they're dying now, and we have the ability to help them. Amy looked up from her medical preparations. The distress signal indicates they have wounded aboard, including some who are critically injured. If we don't reach them soon, people are going to die. People who might be the same ones who killed your families and destroyed your homes, Kresh pointed out, testing the humans' resolve. Ben answered while checking the ship's rescue equipment. Maybe. But we don't know that for certain. And even if they were involved in the attacks, the people on that ship right now are injured and helpless. Killing helpless enemies isn't justice. It's just revenge. Lisa finished calculating their intercept course. Captain, we can reach them in 20 minutes if we push our engines. But our ship doesn't have the equipment for major rescue operations. If their hull is breached, we'll need more powerful systems to save them. Jake looked at Kresh directly. Your ship has the capability to save those people. I'm asking you to help us rescue them. Kresh felt a conflict unlike anything he had experienced before. Every instinct told him that enemies should be eliminated, especially when they were vulnerable. The idea of using valuable resources to save beings who had attacked humans made no strategic sense whatsoever. But watching the humans prepare to risk their own lives for people who had hurt them was affecting Kresh in unexpected ways. These beings were demonstrating a form of courage he had never encountered. They weren't brave because they faced no danger. They were brave because they chose to do what they believed was right despite the risks. You would truly risk your lives. For these Zalani? Kresh asked. Jake nodded without hesitation. We would. Not because we approve of what their government did, but because right now they need help, and we can provide it. Amy added more context. Captain, I'm also detecting what appear to be civilian passengers aboard the damaged ship. Not all of the life forms match military profiles. Some of them might be non-combatants. Even if they were all soldiers, Jake said firmly, we'd still try to save them. Wounded enemies deserve medical care, not execution. Kresh's confusion deepened. This contradicts every principle of warfare and survival. Helping your enemies makes them stronger and more capable of attacking you again in the future. Ben looked up from his console. Maybe in the short term, but humans have learned that treating enemies with dignity and mercy sometimes changes their attitudes toward us. Some of our closest allies today were once our worst enemies. Lisa provided a historical example. After our world wars, the nations that had fought each other became partners in space exploration and scientific research. The countries that tried to destroy each other ended up working together to build the ships that brought us to the stars. Jake made his final decision. Warlord Kresh, I'm going to attempt this rescue with or without your help, but I believe your ships could save more lives than mine can. I'm asking you to choose what kind of leader you want to be. The challenge In Jake's words, hit Kresh like a physical blow. Throughout his career, he had defined leadership as the ability to dominate others through superior strength. But this human was suggesting a completely different definition of leadership, one based on the choice to help rather than harm. Kresh looked at his warriors, who were clearly waiting for orders to either assist with the rescue or eliminate both, the humans and the Zilani. The decision he made in the next few moments would define not just his own character, but possibly the future relationship between humans and the Vorthak Empire. "My ship will assist with the rescue operation," Kresh announced, his deep voice carrying across the bridge. "But I want to understand why you make this choice. When we have saved these Zilani, you will explain to me how helping enemies serves any logical purpose." Jake smiled for the first time since the distress call had arrived. "Thank you, Warlord, and I promise to give you the best explanation I can." Warlord Kresh followed Jake Morrison through the corridors of the New Horizon, his warriors staying close behind. The human ship was smaller than even the smallest Vorthak vessel, but Kresh noticed how efficiently everything was designed. Nothing was wasted, yet the spaces felt comfortable rather than cramped. Soft lighting made the hallways welcoming, and he could see personal items in the crew quarters they passed, suggesting these humans actually lived on their ship rather than just using it as a tool of war. The mess hall was a small but pleasant room with a table large enough for the entire crew. Jake moved to a machine in the corner and began preparing coffee while the others found seats. Amy, Ben, and Lisa acted completely normal, as if having a group of alien predators aboard their ship was just another day at work. Their casual behavior continued to puzzle Kresh, who was used to inspiring immediate terror in everyone he encountered. "The seating might be a bit small for your frame," Jake said apologetically as he worked with the coffee machine. "Our furniture is designed for humans, but you're welcome to stand if that's more comfortable." Kresh chose to remain standing, though more from uncertainty than comfort. One of his warriors whispered something in the Vorthak language, but Kresh gestured for silence. He wanted to focus on understanding these strange beings who showed no fear of his presence. Amy pulled out her portable data pad and began showing images of various human activities. "Since you're interested in how we survive without dominant structures, maybe I can show you some examples of human cooperation." She displayed scenes of humans working together during natural disasters. "When earthquakes or floods damage our cities, people from all over the world send help. They donate money, supplies, and even travel to dangerous areas to rescue strangers. There's no central authority forcing them to do this. They choose to help because they understand that today's disaster victims could be tomorrow's helpers when the situation reverses." Kresh studied the images carefully. He saw humans pulling other humans from collapsed buildings, sharing food with refugees, and working side by side to rebuild damaged communities. "These helpers receive no payment or territory for their efforts?" "Often no," Ben confirmed. "Many of them are volunteers who take time away from their own families and jobs because they want to help. Some are professionals like doctors or engineers who could make more money staying home, but they choose to go where they're needed most." Lisa added her own perspective. "My grandmother lived through a war when she was young. She always told stories about how neighbors shared food even when they barely had enough for themselves. She said the people who hoarded resources and looked out only for themselves often ended up worse off than those who shared and worked together." The coffee machine finished brewing, and Jake poured cups for his human crew members. He looked at Kresh questioningly. "I don't know if your species can safely consume human beverages. Would you like me to scan this first to make sure it won't harm you?" The consideration in Jake's offer surprised Kresh. Most conquerors would. Either force their captives to consume potentially dangerous substances, or simply not care about their well-being. Your scanners would reveal the chemical composition? Amy nodded and ran her medical scanner over one of the coffee cups. Caffeine, various organic compounds, water. Nothing that should be toxic to carbon-based life forms, though it might affect your nervous system differently than it affects ours. Crash accepted a cup and examined the dark liquid. It smelled pleasant and earthy. He took a careful sip and found the taste bitter but interesting. The warmth was soothing, and he could feel a slight stimulating effect from the caffeine. This is an acceptable beverage. Jake smiled and sat down with his own cup. I'm glad you like it. Coffee has been bringing humans together for centuries. Some of our best diplomatic meetings happen over shared meals and drinks. Tell me more about your diplomatic methods, Kresh requested. He was beginning to see that humans approached conflict resolution very differently than the Vorthak Amy brought up historical examples on her data pad. We've learned that understanding other perspectives is usually more effective than trying to force agreement. When two human nations have disputes, they often send diplomats to talk through the problems and find solutions that work for both sides. This works with species that oppose your interests? Kresh asked skeptically. Ben nodded. Not always, but more often than you might think. We've found that most conflicts happen because different groups have different needs, not because one group is inherently evil. If you can figure out what each side really needs, you can sometimes find ways for everyone to get most of what they want. Jake leaned forward slightly. For example, we've had situations on Earth where one group needed farmland and another group needed to preserve forests. Instead of fighting over the territory, they worked together to develop farming techniques that were compatible with forest conservation. Both groups got what they needed, and the environment was better protected. Kresh found these concepts fascinating but difficult to accept. In my experience, resources are finite. When one group takes what it needs, less remains for others. Conflict is inevitable. Lisa shook her head. Sometimes that's true, but often the problem is thinking too narrowly about solutions. Humans have learned to create new resources instead of just fighting over existing ones. We figured out how to make materials that are stronger than anything found in nature. We learned to grow more food on less land. We developed energy sources that don't deplete natural reserves. Amy added more examples. We've also learned to share knowledge freely. When one human discovers something useful, they usually publish the information so other humans can benefit from it too. This actually makes everyone stronger because innovations build on each other. Your scientists reveal their discoveries to potential enemies? Kresh was genuinely shocked by this concept. Most of the time, yes, Amy confirmed. Medical research especially gets shared widely because disease affects everyone. If scientists in one country develop a cure for cancer, they want doctors everywhere to have access to it. Diseases don't respect political boundaries, so cooperation in medical research benefits everyone. Jake could see that these ideas were challenging everything Kresh believed about survival and competition. I know this probably sounds naive to someone from a warrior culture, but we've learned that making other people stronger often makes us stronger too. When our neighbors are healthy, educated, and prosperous, they're less likely to attack us and more likely to trade with us. Ben brought up economic data on the display. Human societies that focus on education and cooperation tend to develop better technology and higher standards of living. Societies that spend most of their resources on military conquest often fall behind in other areas and become vulnerable to internal problems. Kresh considered this information while sipping his coffee. The warmth of the drink and the comfortable atmosphere of the mess hall were affecting him in ways he hadn't expected. For the first time in years, he felt relaxed rather than constantly alert for threats or challenges to his authority. "Your methods require significant trust," he observed. "How do you verify that others will honor agreements and not betray your cooperation?" Jake acknowledged the difficulty of this question. "You're right that trust is essential, and trust has to be built gradually. We start with small agreements and see if both sides honor them. When they do, we try slightly larger agreements. Over time, groups that consistently keep their promises earn reputations for reliability." Amy nodded in agreement. "We also try to create agreements where both sides benefit, so everyone has incentives to keep their word. If breaking an agreement would hurt both parties, it's much less likely to happen." "And when trust is broken?" Kresh pressed. Lisa answered, "Honestly, sometimes agreements fail and sometimes people do betray trust. When that happens, we try to understand why and whether the problems can be fixed. If someone breaks agreements because they're desperate or afraid, we might be able to address those underlying issues. If they break agreements because they're genuinely malicious, then we have to protect ourselves while still trying to find peaceful solutions." Kresh was beginning to understand that human approaches to conflict were far more complex than simple dominance or submission. These beings had developed sophisticated methods for managing disagreement and competition without resorting to violence as the first option. It was a completely different way of thinking about strength and survival. The exploration vessel New Horizon drifted quietly through the cold darkness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the main screen display readings from their latest system scan. The ship had been out here for 3 months now, mapping unknown sectors at the edge of human space. It was routine work, but Jake never got tired of seeing new worlds and strange phenomena that no human had ever witnessed before. Lisa Jang adjusted the navigation controls from her pilot station. She had been flying ships for 15 years, but deep space exploration still gave her a thrill. Ben Carter worked at the engineering console, making sure all systems ran smoothly. The ship's engines hummed with perfect efficiency under his care. Dr. Amy Sullivan reviewed data from the science station, cataloging everything they discovered for the research teams back on Earth. The crew had become close friends during their long journey. They shared meals together, played cards during off hours, and told stories about their lives back home. Jake often marveled at how well humans could bond with each other, even in the vast emptiness of space. It was something special about his species that he had come to appreciate more during these quiet voyages. "Captain, I'm picking up some unusual energy readings," Amy called out, her voice cutting through the peaceful silence. She frowned at her instruments, adjusting several controls to get clearer data. "There's something big out there, maybe 30,000 kilometers off our starboard side." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "Can you identify what's causing the readings?" "Negative. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database. It's massive, though, bigger than anything we've encountered before." Amy's fingers moved quickly across her console, trying to gather more information. Lisa checked her navigation sensors. "I'm not seeing anything on visual or standard detection arrays. Whatever it is, it's either cloaked or using technology we don't understand." Ben looked up from his engineering station. "Power levels are stable on our end. If something that big is out there and we can't see it, that's either very good stealth technology or something we really don't want to meet." Jake considered their options. They were explorers, and encountering the unknown was part of their mission. But they were also responsible for bringing their discoveries back to humanity. "Amy, keep monitoring those readings. Lisa, plot a course." That gives us a better view of that area but keeps us at a safe distance. Ben, make sure our communication array is ready to send a message back to Earth if we need to. The crew worked efficiently, each person focused on their tasks. Jake watched the main screen as Lisa maneuvered the ship into a better position. The energy readings grew stronger as they approached, confirming that something enormous was definitely out there. Suddenly, space itself seemed to tear open. A massive ship emerged from what could only be a hyperspace jump, appearing as if it had materialized from nothing. The alien vessel was unlike anything in human records. It stretched for kilometers, with a dark hull covered in angular armor plating. Weapon systems bristled along its length, and strange energy fields danced around its edges. "My God," Lisa whispered, her hands frozen over the controls. "That thing is huge." Ben stared at his readings in disbelief. "It's at least 10 times the size of our largest battleships. The power output is off the charts." Amy worked frantically to analyze the ship's configuration. "I'm detecting heavy weapons systems, advanced shields, and propulsion technology that's decades ahead of ours. This is definitely not human." Jake felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his voice calm and steady. "All stop. Maintain current position and prepare to receive communications. If they wanted to destroy us, they probably would have done it already." The alien ship moved closer, its massive bulk blocking out the stars behind it. Communication arrays extended from its hull, and soon the New Horizons systems detected an incoming transmission. The message came through in perfect English, though the voice that spoke the words was deep and threatening. "Human vessel. You will prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your immediate destruction. I am Warlord Kresh of the Vorthok Empire, and you now belong to me." Jake looked at his crew. Lisa's face was pale but determined. Ben checked their defensive systems, though they all knew their small exploration ship could not fight something that massive. Amy continued scanning, trying to learn everything she could about their visitors. "Send a response," Jake told Lisa. "Tell them we're peaceful explorers and request permission to speak with their commander." "Captain," Ben said quietly, "our weapons are no match for that ship. If they want to board us, there's not much we can do to stop them." Jake nodded. "I know, but we're not going to make this easy for them, and we're certainly not going to act like we're defeated before we even try to. Communicate." The alien ship moved even closer, until it filled most of their view screen. Docking tubes extended from its hull, moving toward the New Horizon with mechanical precision. Jake could hear the sound of metal connecting to metal as the aliens attached, their boarding equipment to his ship. "Atmospheric seals are holding," Ben reported. "They're using some kind of universal docking system. Whatever these aliens are, they've done this before with other species." Amy checked her readings one more time. "I'm detecting at least a dozen life forms moving through the docking tube. They're big, maybe twice the size of an average human. Bioscans suggest they're definitely predators with enhanced muscle density and what appears to be natural armor plating." Jake stood up from his command chair and straightened his uniform. "Lisa, Ben, Amy, remember that we represent humanity out here. Whatever happens, we show them what humans are made of. We don't cower, we don't beg, and we don't give up our dignity." The airlock at the rear of the bridge hissed open, and the aliens entered. Jake got his first look at a Vorthak warrior, and he understood immediately why they called themselves an empire. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall with scales that looked like natural armor and muscles that rippled under its skin. Its eyes were yellow and predatory, and when it smiled, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth designed for tearing flesh. Behind the first warrior came others, each one equally impressive and intimidating. But at the center of the group walked a figure that was clearly their leader. Warlord Kresh was even larger than his warriors, with scars across his scales that spoke of countless battles. When he looked at Jake, it was with the confidence of a predator that had never met anything it could not defeat. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Kresh studied Jake for a long moment, clearly expecting the human to show fear or submission. When Jake simply stood there calmly, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching, something flickered in Kresh's yellow eyes. Jake took a step forward and extended his hand. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. Welcome. Aboard the New Horizon. Would you like some coffee?" The human rescue ships arrived like thunder across the sky of Keth 7. 3 vessels descended through the atmosphere in perfect formation, their engines creating sonic booms that echoed across the jungle moon. The largest ship, a heavy cruiser, designated UES Discovery, settled into a clearing half a mile from the crash site, while 2 smaller escort vessels took up defensive positions overhead. Commander Vextar watched from his own ship as uniformed humans emerged from the Discovery and began moving toward the survivor camp. At their head walked Captain Amy Foster, a tall woman with gray hair and the confident bearing of someone accustomed to command. Her crew followed in organized groups, carrying medical equipment and supplies. What struck the Zilani observer most was their complete lack of surprise when they encountered Rex. Captain Foster approached the massive Kethtar as if meeting dangerous alien predators was a routine part of human rescue operations. She even smiled when Rex cautiously sniffed her. Extended hand. "You must be the famous Rex I've been hearing about," Foster said calmly. "Jake's been telling me about you over the comm. Says you've been taking good care of his people." Rex studied the newcomer carefully before making a soft rumbling sound that Jake had learned meant approval. The captain scratched behind one of his ears, and Rex actually leaned into the touch, like an oversized pet seeking affection. Dr. Lisa Park emerged from the shelter, where she had been treating the most seriously wounded survivors. "Captain Foster, thank you for coming so quickly. We have several injuries that need proper medical attention." "That's what we're here for," Foster replied. "My medical team is setting up a field hospital right now. But first, let's get everyone transported to the Discovery, where we can give you proper care." Jake Morrison limped over, supported by Amy Collins, who was also moving carefully due to her own injuries. "What about Rex? We can't leave him here alone." Captain Foster's response would have shocked any non-human observer, but she delivered it as if discussing the most natural thing in the world. "Of course, Rex is coming with us. I've already had my crew prepare accommodations for him in our cargo bay. We've set up a temporary habitat with climate control and proper medical facilities." Commander Vextar felt his understanding of the universe shift once again. The human rescue ship had not just been prepared to retrieve their own species. They had specifically planned for the care and transport of an alien apex predator. This suggested that such relationships were not unusual among humans, but were actually expected and supported by their society. As the evacuation proceeded, Vextar observed how the human crew interacted with Rex. None of them showed fear or hesitation around the massive predator. Medical personnel examined his wounds with the same professionalism they showed toward human patients. Engineers discussed modifications to his habitat space to ensure his comfort during the journey. Most remarkably, several crew members brought their children to meet Rex under careful supervision. The Kethtar responded to the young humans with extraordinary gentleness, lowering his massive head so they could pet his snout and making soft sounds when they giggled at his size. "Children," Dr. Zelmoth whispered in amazement, "they are allowing their offspring to interact with an apex predator." "And the predator understands their vulnerability," Kilana added. "His behavior becomes even more careful around the young ones." Captain Ben Hayes was loaded onto a medical transport stretcher, his injuries requiring immediate attention. As the medical team prepared to move him, Rex approached the stretcher with obvious concern. The massive predator gently nuzzled Ben's hand and made worried sounds that seemed to ask if his human friend would be all right. "Don't worry, big guy," Ben said weakly. "The docs will fix me up good as new. You just take care of the others until I'm back on my feet." Rex seemed to understand, touching his snout briefly to Ben's forehead in what could only be described as a gesture of affection and farewell. The human medical team waited patiently for this interaction to complete before continuing their evacuation. Procedures. Captain Foster took personal charge of Rex's transport, walking beside him as they moved toward the Discovery. "I understand you've been quite the hero," she told the Kethtar conversationally. "Jake tells me you saved their lives during that wolf attack. That makes you crew as far as I'm concerned." The words hit Commander Vextar like a revelation. The human captain was not just tolerating Rex's presence. She was officially accepting him as a member of her crew. This was not an emergency accommodation, but a formal recognition of his status within human society. As they boarded the Discovery, Vextar requested permission to observe the integration process. Captain Foster granted his request with the casual hospitality that seemed typical of human behavior. "Sure, Commander. Always happy to share knowledge with fellow explorers." The Kethtar's habitat had been constructed in one of the ship's larger cargo holds, but it was far more than a simple containment area. Human engineers had created a comfortable living space with proper lighting, temperature control, and even entertainment systems. There was a large sleeping area, a feeding station, and plenty of room for Rex to move around freely. "We've installed a communication system so Rex can call for help if he needs anything," Chief Engineer Martinez explained to Jake. "The medical bay is just one deck up, and we've got a direct transport pad if he needs emergency care." Jake ran his hand along Rex's flank as they explored the new accommodations together. "What do you think, boy? Better than sleeping under a tarp in the jungle?" Rex explored every corner of his new home, sniffing curiously at the various systems and devices. When he discovered a viewing port that showed the stars outside, he made excited sounds and pressed his snout against the transparent aluminum window. "He likes to look at the stars," Lisa explained to the ship's crew. "Back on the surface, he would often lie beside our fire and stare up at the night sky." Dr. Sarah Kim, the Discovery's chief medical officer, examined Rex with the same thoroughness she would show any crew member. She documented his injuries, checked his healing progress, and established a treatment plan for his complete recovery. Her bedside manner with the alien predator was professional and caring. "He's in remarkable condition considering what he's been through," she reported to Captain Foster. "The field treatment he received was excellent, and his bond with the survivors clearly contributed to his psychological well-being." Meanwhile, in the ship's main conference room, Captain Foster sat down with Commander Vextar to discuss what the Zalani had observed. The conversation would reshape Vextar's understanding of humanity and their place in the galaxy. "You seem surprised by our relationship with Rex," Foster noted as she poured coffee for both of them. "May I ask why?" Vextar chose his words carefully. "In our records of 847 sentient species, none have ever formed genuine emotional bonds with apex predators. Such behavior contradicts every known survival instinct. Foster nodded thoughtfully. I can see how it might seem strange from an outside perspective, but for humans, forming bonds with other species is just part of who we are. We've been doing it for so long that we barely think about it anymore. She activated a holographic display showing images from Earth's history. Vextar saw humans working alongside massive wolves, riding powerful horses, swimming with deadly sharks, and living peacefully with countless species that should have been natural enemies. Our ancestors survived not by fighting every threat they encountered, but by making allies wherever possible, Foster explained. A human with a loyal wolf companion was far more likely to survive than a human alone. Over thousands of generations, we developed an instinctive ability to form emotional connections with other intelligent creatures. But the risks, Vextar protested. How do you know which creatures can be trusted? We don't always know, Foster admitted. Sometimes we get it wrong and people get hurt, but far more often we get it right, and both species benefit from the relationship. She showed him more images, humans working with dolphins to hunt fish, partnering with birds to find honey, even cooperating with bacteria to improve their health. The scope of human interspecies relationships was staggering. The key is empathy, Foster continued. We have an unusual ability to understand and relate to the emotional states of other creatures. When we found Rex wounded and alone, we didn't see a dangerous predator. We saw a fellow intelligent being in need of help. And Rex responded to this empathy, Vextar said slowly, beginning to understand. Exactly. Most intelligent creatures are capable of forming emotional bonds if they're approached with genuine care and respect. The problem is that most species never try because they're too focused on the potential dangers. As if summoned by their conversation, Rex appeared at the conference room door with Jake beside him. The massive Keth Tar had obviously been exploring the ship and had come looking for his human companions. "Hey there, buddy," Foster called out. "Come on in. There's plenty of room." Rex entered the conference room with confident steps. No longer the wounded creature they had found in the jungle. His healing was progressing rapidly under proper medical care, and his psychological health was clearly excellent. He approached Vexatar without fear and extended his snout in what the commander, now recognized as a friendly,